Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
All right. And friends, I will try to monitor the, or maybe Nagesh, I have a request for you. If you could monitor the chat window or the questions, if I'm an introvert, so I'm not always comfortable speaking up. So those of you who want to provide feedback or you want to ask a question and you are more comfortable using the chat panel, do that. Use whatever format makes sense. All right, let's talk about 10 key ingredients for delicious, tasty, yummy sprint reviews. A little bit about myself, I guess. Let's skip this. This is boring. Nagesh already told you what you need to know about me. So my life coach left a very profound impact on my life. And one of the quotes that she shared with me, which I use every single day of my life, is the quality of life is determined by the quality of questions we ask. There are plenty of answers in the world. We have Google. The problem is not that there's a lack of answers. The problem is we don't often, or at least I, whenever I struggle in my life, I'm not asking the right questions, right? And one way, a technique that doesn't come naturally to me is a technique of powerful questions. So those of you who are not familiar with coactive coaching, there's a website, coactive.com. I've got the link on top. Resources, they have a free toolkit that's available to pretty much to anybody. In your journey, if you're trying to add one more tool to your toolkit, I would strongly recommend that you go to this website, download this PDF with of powerful questions and see if you can start using it, okay? And what we'll do in this session is we're going to try and use some powerful questions. So when we go to our clients, or let's say we are in a pre-sales context, client or a prospect calls us and says, Ravi, can you help us with agile coaching? The first thing we ask them is, what do you want? What's going on? Why did you reach out to us? What's the problem? And here's what typically happens. IT says business sucks, business says IT sucks, DevOps says engineering sucks, QA says dev sucks. Everybody is pointing the finger at everybody else, right? And everybody's saying my team is awesome, I am awesome, everybody else is screwed up, right? So we said, okay, not surprising. What do you want us to do about it? How can we help? And the answer is, Ravi, be a hammer of Thor, be an agile hammer of Thor. Come and fix all of those other nitwits. So they want to weaponize agile. They want to weaponize me as someone who has a reputation in the industry. And what they want is they want me to go and then validate their hypothesis, their perspective, and then go and tell others, oh yeah, I'm an agile coach. And what so-and-so is saying is absolutely right. You're all screwed up. And let me use the agile manifesto principles, Scrum values, and Scrum guide and tell you why you're screwed up and you got to fix your behavior. So we say, no, that's not how we work. That's not our intent, but we have a better idea. One of the most powerful things or tools in our toolkit is Scrum, or the Scrum values, the principles, and one of the events is sprint review. So our hypothesis usually is that we will create a sprint review. We will get the right stakeholders together, and we will. Give me 1 second. That's my dog. I apologize. Let me take care of her or she won't let us talk. All right, there's some people uncertainty there we just dealt with. Yeah, so, we thought, okay, we tell the client, let's engineer a sprint review and we'll create a space where the right people have the right interactions at the right time. And maybe that will give you a constructive way to channelize your frustrations with each other. So we organize our first sprint review. By the way, whatever I'm telling you, most of the stories that I'm sharing is based on a real world client that Nagesh and I have worked with, all right? So before we go further, I want to ask all of you, what is the most important intent or a purpose of a sprint review? All right. So this is the format I would like you to fill out. Some of you may have already seen it on my LinkedIn page, but I invite everyone to participate. Nagesh, could you give maybe just 30 seconds, 30 to 60 seconds, and I'd like everybody who wants to participate to type their answers in the chat window, please.
Sure. So I'm going to be time boxing this. So I'm going to give you like a minute. And after 1 minute, you might want to, when I say enter, so kindly enter your response.
All right.
We have 20 seconds. Okay, hit enter, please.
All right. So I want the sprint review as a Scrum Master. I want the sprint review to help the dev team inspect and course correct. As a stakeholder, collaborate with the Scrum team. All right. Do we have production ready deliverables? Customer dissatisfaction. Okay. I'm just reading. Understand the current product. Awesome. Very good. So I have a yes and to the comments. So as a product owner who I feel should be the master of ceremonies, the MC, ideally the product owner is from the business side. So they are speaking to their community members, their fellow stakeholders on the business side. So he or she wants to use the sprint review to crowdsource the wisdom of all of the stakeholders. So as an organization, we can learn from the past, we can understand what's going on right now, and we can, most importantly, we can improve the future. And what is the lever that Scrum gives us? The lever that we need to use to change the future, that's the product backlog. So we are about to go into sprint planning, probably the next day, or it could be the same day. And we want to crowdsource as much wisdom as we can so that we can influence sprint planning and our sprint goal, all right? So we try to level set the intent of the sprint review, because if you don't know where you are going, any road will take you there, Alice in Wonderland. So, and then we start, but here's the first problem. We have the sprint review, and guess what? The only people who showed up are members of the Scrum team, the worker bees. And they're frustrated because then they say, Ravi, this is a complete waste of time. We know what we did this sprint. What's the point of having a sprint review when we are presenting to ourselves? It makes no sense. So we start doing some diagnostics, do a retrospective. What the heck just happened? Why is it that the key stakeholders from business did not show up? And the answer is the invite was sent by the Scrum Master. Scrum Master is in IT. Business has a very poor reputation, or let's say poor opinion of IT, and they think people in IT like me are all idiots, and they either ignore mails from IT, or they delete them, or they have a rule where it automatically goes, any email from IT goes into their junk folder. So IT is full of nitwits. I'm doing real work. I have no time for chasing the latest bright shiny object that IT has come up with. So I'm not going to attend any of their meetings. So the adjustment that we make is we've got to figure out who's the right host. And the right host in the context of a sprint review, it has to be the product owner. Ideally, product owner is from the business organization and is a respected member of the business community, such that when someone receives an email, someone from the business community receives an email from that person, it carries some prestige, some weight, and they pay attention. Especially when this person invites them to an event, they are going to show up because they care about this person, they respect this person, right? So the first ingredient for a tasty sprint review is the master of ceremonies has to be a respected member of the business community. Ideally, it's a product owner, and the invitation has to be sent by the product owner, and it shouldn't just be an email. The product owner should use other channels, one-on-one communication, every channel at their disposal to try and influence, persuade, beg, borrow, plead, cajole the key stakeholders to please come and join them in this party, right? This important event. So that's ingredient number one. So we tried. The hypothesis is the invite comes from the PO, it'll work. Sadly, the universe thinks otherwise. Second attempt, worker bees. Now we are figuring out, all right, what's going on? Why? We thought we did the right thing. The PO invited the business community, nobody showed up. Why? So one quote from Daniel Vacanti, who is the co-creator of the Professional Scrum with Kanban course, that helped me get an insight. Vacanti told me Kanban is about getting the right people to ask the right questions at the right time. And that can be applied to pretty much every event of Scrum. Sprint review is also similar. It's about getting the right people to ask the right questions at the right time. So we figured out who is the right host. Now we got to figure out who are the right guests, right? So who are the right guests and how can we get them to show up? What else is missing besides getting an invitation from the right person? We have to get the executives. If we don't have the executives in the room, it's just a bunch of, I would say, with a lot of respect, mid-level managers talking to each other, most of whom do not have the power. Sometimes they may not even have the right perspective to ask the right questions or make the right decisions. So we had to figure out, how do we get the executives, right? We invite the executives, executives don't show up. So this is take 3. Now what? The question is, executives have certain important questions about the product and they need to get them answered. Where are these questions being answered? So let me ask you a question. If you go to a traditional organization that has not used Agile or Scrum, and there are executives who are interested in learning about the status of key initiatives, key projects or programs, where do they typically get these answers? Rishi is saying reports. Yes, they will get reports. What about if they want face-to-face interaction? Tell me the names of some meetings where executives get an opportunity to get a status report and then get an opportunity to ask real time what's going on. Traditional organizations like A3 status reports, there could be an all hands meeting. They could ask the project manager, weekly or bi-weekly status connects, review meeting, steering committee. Exactly. So we have dashboard review. They could get some feedback, as Nitish was saying, through the PO or delivery heads. So that's what we found. There is this steering committee meeting and the executives are getting all of their questions answered. They're getting all of their reports in the steering committee meeting. So now when somebody invites them to a sprint review, they're like, what is the sprint review you speak of and why should I care? I'm doing real work. I already have the steering committee meeting. I'm going to go to the steering committee and review and get all my questions answered. Why should I go and attend a sprint review? So one suggestion we had was, okay, let's go crash the sprint review. If they are not, let's go crash the steering committee. So if they are not going to come to the sprint review, let us modify the agenda of the steering committee meeting. Maybe let's go and modify the frequency of the steering committee or the attendees. And then let's see if we can get that valuable feedback in the steering committee meeting. All right. So that was take 3, hypothesis number 3, do an experiment. Now we have executives in the room, but they're falling asleep or they're banging their head against the table. Why does this happen? Let me ask you a question. Have you been in a situation where you have all the right people, senior stakeholders in a sprint review, and they're checking their cell phone, they're bored, they're disinterested, they're physically there, but not mentally or emotionally there? Why does this happen? All right. Pankaj is saying the agenda is not clear. It's a Prabhat saying it's a monologue. Kuldeep said it's irrelevant topics. Mudassar, teams cannot articulate in business terms. Yeah, irrelevant content, can't understand the language, maybe technical language, geek speak. Yeah, too many technical details. So that's exactly what I've seen happen over and over again, multiple clients. So what happens is the developers immediately start putting up, sometimes I've been in companies, this was very cringeworthy. One time I was in a large telecom client and I had AVPs, like area vice presidents in the meeting, very nice people. And suddenly developers start pulling up XML and database tables. And the AVP is like, what the heck is going on, man? I came here because Ravi asked me to be here. I think I wanted to show my support. And now the developers are showing me database schema. They're showing me XML, pulling up DOS prompts. Like, what is going on? The command shell, it's crazy. So we had to educate our developers to tell a story in terms of business terms, right? And we had to educate our developers and storytellers to tie whatever work they have done to the big picture so we can elevate the level of the conversation in terms that resonate with the executives, the stakeholders, in terms that clearly explain what's in it for me, right? There's a radio channel, WIIFM. What is in it for me? How does this tie to my care abouts, right? So we had to educate and coach our developers to tell the story in terms of the care abouts of the audience, right? So we did that. Now the next experiment, we had nothing but crickets. Okay, that's a bad icon. Crickets, silence. We got zero feedback. So we're like, what is going on? We got the right host, ingredient number 1. We got the right, in guests. We got the right people. We crashed the steering review, so the executives are there. We elevated the level of detail. That's ingredient number 4. Now we thought this is a sixer, right? We hit it out of the park, but no feedback. So the meeting got over, sprint review got over, and my fellow coach Steve and I, we were like, Ravi, he was telling me, Ravi, what the heck happened? We are exchanging messages on Slack, pin drop silence. Then we find out later on, the moment the sprint review got over, all the execs started picking up the phone and blasting the VPs, all our VPs of delivery. That was the worst sprint review I attended. What is going on? Agile is horrible. We should have stuck with waterfall. We started wondering what happened. Why is it that the most powerful people in the company are not able to directly communicate feedback to people who they have the power to fire in the meeting, face to face? Let me ask you a question. Have you seen this? And if you have, what is the reason? Even if you haven't, give me your hypothesis. What might be the reason why the most powerful executives in the company might feel or might block them? What might block them or stop them from sharing feedback to directly with the team in a sprint review? Okay, Abhishek is saying they're protective of their image. Pankaj is saying maybe they're disengaged. Mental block. They need someone else to be the bearer of constructive feedback. Exec leaders, yeah, they may feel. So Mudassar is saying maybe the team will not understand my feedback. So let's talk about that. Let's go to the question behind the question. How might giving feedback damage their image, or what might be the reason why the executive feels that the recipient, the dev team, will not understand my feedback? So Sachin is also saying they don't understand the business. So maybe they won't understand what I'm trying to say. Misplaced sense of elitism. So good questions. So I have found this is so counterintuitive. I have found this strange, like a dichotomy. In front of the team, sometimes the executives are fake nice, sugary nice, and then behind the scenes, when they talk about the same people that they were just in the room with, they are really brutal. So I think as Abhishek was saying, who said protective of their image, they may want to protect that image that, you know, I'm really kind and compassionate. So in public, they won't say anything that may be perceived as critical. But when nobody else is watching, or when the people in front of whom they want to protect their image are not there, they are really brutal, right? So transparency, how do we coach them to be transparent in a way that does not destroy the morale of the team, and at the same time provides feedback constructively, right? So that was one challenge we had. How could we make the executives feel safe? How do we teach them to provide feedback constructively? And if they feel that the developers are they can't understand business, what a great opportunity to be a servant leader. What a great opportunity to be a storyteller and to teach them through the art and craft of storytelling, to teach the developers how to think in terms of business, how to elevate their thinking. Because otherwise it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You hire the smartest people in the industry, you bring them into your company, but if you don't teach them how to think like business stakeholders, how are they supposed to elevate their thinking? So that's your job as a servant leader. And one thing I remember from my first Scrum Master training way back when, I was trained by a lady called Jean Tabeka. She was an amazing lady. She passed away. What she told me is, when things are going well, a servant leader looks out at the team, at the floor, and says, what an amazing team I have. And when things are going into a ditch, going down the drain, the servant leader looks into the mirror and asks themselves, introspects, what could I be doing better? But in many companies which are trying to shift from the traditional mindset, command and control, to the agile mindset, the executives are very uncomfortable looking in the mirror, and they have often surrounded themselves with people who are too scared to tell them the truth. So when they see a dysfunction, like the team is unable to speak at the language at the level of business, or in terms of business, the business language, it rarely occurs to them that this is an opportunity for them to upgrade their leadership. So instead of adjusting their leadership style, what they do is they are fake nice in front of the team, and they are super critical behind the team, right? Behind the back of the team. So we have to coach them. They are also flawed human beings. Like all of us, they are also on a journey. None of us is perfect. So it's our obligation, it's our duty to coach the executives, right? So what did we do? We tried to create a working agreement. We tried to educate the team. We asked the team, how would you prefer to receive feedback from the executives in a way that does not demoralize you? And we ask the executives, what can we do to make it safe for you to share your feedback? And as Abhishek was saying, lessons on vulnerability. How might we help our executives be vulnerable? How might we get or explain to our team members to be vulnerable? Because if we are vulnerable, then we can say how we are feeling, and then that might reveal an opportunity for course correction, right? Vulnerability requires safety, psychological safety. So part of our job is how do we create psychological safety? One technique that I want to share with you is a technique called nonviolent communication. I learned this from my Management 3.0 training with a colleague of Nagesh and mine, Rich Vysotsky. So if you are unfamiliar with nonviolent communication, I think the website is nvc.org. Look it up. It's a very simple 4-step process. So one thing that you could do as Scrum coaches, as Scrum practitioners, is to model the behavior. So when people see how you are able to constructively provide feedback, now they can reverse engineer what you did and they could emulate you, and you could, in a subtle way, you could start changing the tone and the culture of the company, right? So we try to do some of that stuff. We try to engineer a working agreement, and then we go to take 5, right? Hypothesis number 5 is, if only I gave these guys, if I helped them co-create a working agreement, all would be fine. Let's see what happens next. So now what happens next is, if it's a good sprint, you met the sprint goal. Sometimes executives define success in the number of story points that you delivered. It's like, yay, good job, you rock. Or if it's a disastrous sprint, what they perceive to be a disaster, they demonstrate techniques from the Seagull School of Management. Does anybody know what is the Seagull School of Management? This is something funny. This is, so, I came to America in 2001, 19 years ago. And one thing I realized is that the English we use in India and the English we use in America is like, especially in whether it's business context or personal context, it's completely different. So they have all of these Americanisms that I had to learn. And this is one of my favorite Americanisms. So the Seagull School of Management is, you share something with another person, and like a seagull, they fly onto the ship, and they crap all over the ship, and then they fly out. So that's called the Seagull School of Management. And then one of my clients, they told me there's a variant. It's the Steven Seagal School of Management. So you've probably seen some horrible action movies from Steven Seagal. So what he does is, so that in that variant, you fly onto the ship, you crap all over the sprint review, and then you shoot everybody, and then you fly out, right? So some of our clients, that's what happens in a sprint review. It's a demo. And if it's an awesome sprint, it's like, yay, you rock. Or if it's a horrible sprint, like, you suck, right? And sprint review is over. The biggest opportunity that was lost is, how are we going to get better, right? So the intent of a sprint review is not just a demo and then you applaud or you throw rotten tomatoes at the team. The opportunity is to learn from the past, understand the present, and change the future, right? So we have to explain to stakeholders who may never have attended any agile training or who will never attend any agile training. We have to explain to them the why. Why are we here, right? And this is where the art and craft of storytelling comes in. When speaking with a stakeholder, let's try not to use jargon from the world of Agile or Scrum, but let's instead tell the story of a sprint review in terms of incidents, in terms of metaphors and analogies that resonate with them. We are natural born storytellers as human beings, right? We love gathering around a fire and telling stories. Once upon a time, that's the way to the heart of a person, right? If one book that I would recommend for those who are interested in guiding organizational change is a book called The Heart of Change by John Cotter. If you haven't read that book, I would strongly recommend that you add it to your reading list. And that book is about 12 organizational transformations that were successful. And in each of those 12 organizational transformations, the tipping point was a moment when the guide, the change agent used an incident to tell a story that appealed to the heart of key stakeholders. And when you move somebody's heart, then you move their actions, right? So we are natural born storytellers. So when you're inviting stakeholders to a sprint review who have never attended an agile training, who are never going to attend an agile training, you've got to be able to tell them a simple story to explain to them why are they there, tell them some horror story in the past where the team went down the wrong path and it hurt them and their team, and explain to them how this moment in time could be an opportunity to avoid a repeat of the past. All right, so tell a story. Tell a story about the sprint review. Don't use geek speak. So then we thought, okay, now everything is going to work. But the next time, what happened was they started feeling safe and it just became a food fight. The sprint review became a food fight where they just started fighting with each other, and whatever unhealthy conversations they used to have behind the scenes, now it erupted inside of the sprint review, right? So we started thinking, what's going on now? What do we do? So take 7 was, what if we provide some guardrails, and what if we create a flow of the conversation that can help the stakeholders constructively answer or share their feedback? So one thing we started doing was we created an agenda of the sprint review, and on every single slide, we actually populate the most powerful questions that we want the stakeholders to either ask or we want the team to explore together. And usually the questions might be, how might we do blah? What is the data telling us? If you're interested in learning more about this, we have a webinar on this topic, or Nagesh and I will talk. And if there's interest, then we will do a session for this audience where we can share 10 reasons why sprint reviews suck, and what is a suggested agenda that we have used in multiple clients to guide the sprint review. All right, so that's ingredient number 7, guide the conversation, provide some guardrails. So now what happens is the conversation sometimes gets hijacked by hippos. Does anybody know what a hippo is?
Highest paid person opinion.
Highest paid person's opinion. So now the CEO or whoever is the most powerful person, they start saying, this is what my gut is saying, and this is the right thing, and that's what we should do. There is no data, there is no evidence, and everybody is too scared to challenge the CEO because they're scared, oh my God, this person could fire me, and I don't have the guts to say it. Or the evidence, the conversation is controlled by zebras. This is a really cool acronym. Who or what is a zebra? So this is really cool. Zero evidence, but really arrogant. Zero evidence, but really arrogant. So if you're a coach, if you're a Scrum Master, if you're an organizational change agent, what can we do inside of a sprint review? How might we engineer the conversation such that we have less of the conversation being influenced or controlled by hippos and zebras? What could we do? What has worked for you? All right. Abhishek is get a lion. Yes. What will the lion look like? Sachin is saying talk numbers that matter to execs. That's a lion. Metrics. Tell the story about metrics. Bring data and facts. So let's get a lion. And the lion is empiricism. The lion is indisputable market data, right? So it's not your gut versus my gut. It's not gut-based management. It's not hippo-based management. It is not zebra-based management. It's evidence-based management, right? Reminding people about what is the purpose, as Sandeep was saying. All right. So let's bring the lion in the conversation. Let's bring evidence to the conversation. So this was take 8, ingredient number 8. Let's use Power BI. Let's use Tableau, Periscope, New Relic. Let's get data from systems of truth, NetSuite, Google Analytics. Let's create a business outcome-based dashboard so that it's not about zebras and hippos, but it's about real world data from real world customers, right? So we made this proposal, and like most companies, the answer was, yeah, I want to be agile, but I don't have time for that BS. I don't have time for metrics. The only metrics I'm interested in is velocity and defects. Anything else, we just don't have the budget for creating any dashboards that are based on real world market data, which is such a contradiction. I want to be agile, but I don't want to use empiricism. But that is the state of our industry. Agile means how to get twice the work done from half the people or in half the time, right? So companies like this, it's like they're serving food to our customer, plate after plate of food, and they are not even waiting to see, did the customer eat the food? Does the customer like the food? Is the customer going to come back? Are they coming back? You're just delivering feature after feature, release after release. Success is defined in terms of activities. How many points did you deliver? How many releases were on time, on scope, on budget? But it's not about business value and business outcomes. So we realized that we need to stop doing business with companies who want to be pseudo agile or fake agile, who want to use agile as a stick to beat the development teams to deliver more points, and who are not open to understanding the essence of agility, which is use market data to understand what is and is not working, to hear the voice of the market, and then use that voice at frequent intervals with short feedback loops to course correct, to learn and course correct. That is agility. But there are some people you can talk till you're blue in the face. They are just not ready for that message. I attended this coactive coaching presented by a lady called Lisa Atkins. She's a thought leader in our industry. And what Lisa taught all of us was, as guides, as coaches, as advisors, our job is to open the door and show our clients, our students, our coachees, what might be possible on the other side of the door. And then leave the rest to them. It's their choice. Would they like to cross over and see what's possible on the other side of the door? If they choose not to cross over, that's okay. It doesn't make them a bad person. Right now, they are not interested in agility, and that's okay. So it doesn't make them a bad person or a bad company. It doesn't make Agile a bad framework. It doesn't make me a bad coach. We have a choice to make. At this point in our lives, is this a good fit? Is this relationship a good fit? And if it is not a good fit, it's okay to move on. So one adjustment that we did was, at least in Smooth Apps, we started adjusting our pre-sales process and our qualification questions. And we said life is short. We don't know how much time we have left on planet Earth. I do not want to waste my time banging my head against the wall and trying to help people who don't want to be helped. So we became more rigorous and discriminating in our sales process. And we started saying no to clients, even if they have money for $1 million SOW. If we are not culturally compatible, that money is not worth it, right? So we started rejecting those kind of clients, and those clients which sadly we did not reject early on. I have actually fired $1 million clients, not because I don't need the money. I desperately need the money. I just don't need the grief. Life is not worth living when you have a horrible client, right? So we got the right, imagine now we are working with clients who understand agility. We have the sprint review, we have the right people, we're asking the right questions. We established all of the 9 prerequisites for delicious sprint reviews. And now the challenge was, we are in the sprint review, but things are murky. We're trying to use metrics, but it's still hazy. We don't know what is the market trying to tell us. And the last frontier for the sprint review is not only to have metrics that speak to executives, but to have the right metrics. And Nagesh and I are working on a product called Al Dente. And if there's interest, actually Nagesh is our first customer. Maybe Nagesh will invite some of you to his first Al Dente workshop. But we have actually created a product called Al Dente, which can help companies and executives figure out, is the product right? What is Al Dente? So Al Dente is something I learned from my wife. When you have spaghetti, al dente is a term that's used to figure out, is the spaghetti just right? So when the chef is making spaghetti, the chef is trying to evaluate or inspect the spaghetti to figure out, is this just right for customers or not? All right. So ingredient number 10 for a delicious sprint review is, what kind of metrics should we use to figure out, is the solution we are delivering to market, is it al dente? All right. There's not enough time in this event for us to dive into it, but if there's interest, maybe Nagesh can do a presentation and actually help you use the tool and understand the tool, but that's for another day, another time. So that brings us to the end of this conversation. Got a bunch of excellent presentations and videos. So my YouTube channel has got a bunch of videos, the 3 C's of Scrum, evidence-based agility. We've got a great presentation by Mark Norneman, who's a colleague of Nagesh's mine, on the scrum.org YouTube channel about agile metrics. We've got a webinar on evidence-based management. We've got lots of amazing content on the scrum.org channel, on my website. And you can learn more about evidence-based management. Nagesh is an expert in all of these areas. So I hope you will reach out to him, and I'm sure that he will be generous with his time. So those are some references. If you want to learn more about my company, my ideas, got a bunch of free content on my website. One of my most popular blogs recently is, what is a job description for the professional Scrum product owner? And got a bunch of videos. One of my most popular videos was 4 signs you are too modern for agile. Got a bunch of presentations, webinars, and a bunch of, and you can connect with me on, follow my company page on LinkedIn if you want to see our new content or events. All right. So let's do a quick recap. The 10 key ingredients for delicious sprint reviews. Who is the right host? Who are the right guests? What is the right level of detail? Are the guests not showing up because they're getting served somewhere else, like the steering committee meeting? Let's go crash it. How might we make the guests feel safe to share their feedback in a constructive way? How can we explain to the guest, why are we here and what's in it for them to participate in the sprint review? How can we guide the conversation so it's not a food fight? How might we base the conversation on evidence and not allow zebras and hippos to control the conversation? How can we make sure we are talking to the right audience? We're talking to the right organization. And how can we make sure that the solution is al dente? So I have a question for you. Based on what you learned today, what is the single most important course correction you will try out within the next 2 weeks to improve the quality and the efficacy of your sprint reviews? what is the single most important course correction? All right. Mudassar is saying, number 7, how might we guide the conversation? Shaurya, better articulate the why. Anupama, what is the right culture? Agile is not a good fit for everyone. Doesn't make them bad, doesn't make Agile bad. You got to make sure we are selling to the person who wants to buy. Sachin, number 4, where are the guests being served? Rishi, understand the stakeholder mindset. One thing we learned in the PSM2 course, which if you haven't attended that course from Nagesh, maybe you want to, we have the empathy map. And in the PSM2 course, we teach attendees how to understand the stakeholder mindset using a technique called the empathy map. Foster empiricism with all the stakeholders. Make sure the right stakeholders are participating. Enable and coach the product owner. Yeah, that is huge. Teach the product owner to be a bridge in terms of storytelling between the dev team and the stakeholders. Use evidence to tame the hippos and zebras. Engage with stakeholders to set the right expectations and explore how can we explain the why. Awesome. Perfect. All right, friends, that brings us to the end of our presentation. 10 ingredients for tasty sprint reviews. There are probably a bunch of questions that were not answered along the way. So Nagesh, can I give the control back to you, and then maybe you could moderate the conversation and help us figure out what are the right questions.
Sure.
Just a quick time check. I'll have to drop off at 9:30 because of some family time. I want to spend time with my family, practice sustainable pace. So we have 20 minutes, and
Sure.
it's please help us make the best use of the time we have together.
Sure, Ravi. Yeah, that sounds good. So I think there was one question which came from Sandeep, was that should RACI assessment be done by a product owner for the stakeholders?
All right.
So RACI.
Yeah, the RACI. So here's what I would recommend, Sandeep. That's a great question. Instead of RACI, my advice is to use a technique called delegation poker. It's a management 3.0 technique. Nagesh is an expert. He's a management 3.0 trainer. So I would recommend that you reach out to Nagesh, see if he can explain. But in a nutshell, I learned this from one of our colleagues, Ralph Jochum. Delegation poker creates 7 levels of delegation, and it tries to clarify who gets to make what decision, and also what kind of decisions are made jointly. So I would invite you to work with Nagesh, see if you could learn about delegation poker and try that instead. That's a great question, Sandeep.
So we have another question. It came from Abhishek, and it's quite an interesting question. Says that how do we do this in banking environment where traceability of features being developed to market outcome is labyrinthic?
Did you say labyrinthic?
Yes.
Labyrinth.
Yes.
Well, yeah. So guys, I'm Abhishek. Thank you for the question. Right now, I'm working. One of my clients is a federal bank. Federally regulated bank. It is fairly complex. They move billions of dollars of funds, billion with a B. What techniques might help? In my mind, one technique, a simple technique, is a technique called impact mapping. Again, Nagesh is an expert in this area. We actually teach impact mapping in some of our courses like Scale Professional Scrum, or I'm sure Nagesh could do a workshop for you. But I feel that if something feels like it's like a labyrinth, it's complex, I feel the art and craft of software engineering is managing that complexity. And all models are wrong, some are useful. But I feel our job is to coach and mentor our organizations to take that labyrinth of complexity and to distill it into a form that can be understood by developers. And I feel the simplest way that I have done it is using personas, impact mapping, and using techniques like the wildly important goal and WIG and sub-WIGs from Franklin Covey, 4 disciplines of execution. So easier said than done, but I'm sure if you ask Nagesh, he'll be happy to do a workshop with you where he can take the theory and teach you in the real world context how to apply that theory to your labyrinthic requirements. All right, great question.
Thank you, Ravi. We have a third question, which is the last question. And this comes from Prabhat. So he says that some execs wants to embrace Agile or Scrum without willing to follow empiricism and bend rules using their own, just because they want to be at par with the Agile industry. So how do we help such people?
So I guess I have 2 recommendations here, okay? One is I have a blog called 10 Questions for Agile Organizations, something like that. I would recommend that you use powerful questions. First, start with asking your exec, what would you like to see happen? Understand that human being and what matters to that human being. So first ask a question. What would you like to see happen? And then ask them, what's happening right now? And ask them what is the delta between what they want to see happen and what is happening. And ask them what techniques have we been using. So for example, if the executive is bending, we feel the executive is bending the rules of agility to suit their purpose. And if they are getting what they want, if the company is succeeding, awesome. Agile is not a silver bullet that is appropriate for all contexts. So if they are not using Agile, but they're getting what they want, okay. But if they're not getting what they want, the inquiry we want them to engage in is not that you are a bad human being, but would you be interested in other ways, in exploring other ways to get more of what you want and less of what you don't want? And may we work together to create an experiment to try getting you more of what you want. And then let them choose, open the door, tell them this is what might be possible. Would you like to play this game? And if the answer is no, respect that decision. Nobody can make another human being do something that they don't want to do. So you got to respect that person's that choice. All right. That's my feedback.
Thanks, that helps.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Ravi. I think that was very intriguing, and I definitely had a lot of learnings for myself. What I want to show everyone is, let me know if you are able to see the screen. I have the mural. So and this mural is going to be available with all of you, by the way. I have added a section called Things to Explore. And here I have added all the recommendations which are provided by Ravi. And everything is either a PDF or a link. When you double click on this, it is going to actually take you to the recommendation which Ravi just made. So this is going to be available to you as a post Meetup. So that's something which I wanted to share, that you don't have to struggle for this. So any more questions if you have, we can leverage Ravi's time. But thank you so much, Ravi, for taking time. I know that you are very busy, and it was very insightful. So may I request on behalf of everybody here that can we have a PDF of the presentation which you just used to share the insights with us?
Yeah, I will publish it on my LinkedIn slide share, and then you guys can access it.
Yeah, I think that works. That works for us.
Perfect. What else?
So before Ravi leaves us, and so do we have any open house questions for Ravi?
Yes, hi Nagesh, Sandeep here. I have a question for Ravi. So basically in traditional organizations, or organizations which are not really software developing organizations, these are mainly, automotive organizations who traditionally were into mechanical engineering. They are now moving towards electrification, mechatronics, more of addition of electronic software and all. Now, in these organizations, the main challenge that you face is for several decades, the management is so much conditioned with the traditional way of working that they don't really understand the thought process behind agile way of working. To them, it is very difficult to understand. And the senior executives are the ones who have in the past done PMPs and PGMPs, and they always keep on talking in that terminology. So the question which I have is, for the new breed of people who want to bring in this agile adoption, would it be helpful to convert the agile terminology, the agile language, into some traditional management language which these people will understand? What does Ravi feel? And Nagesh, if you can also add your thoughts, would really be helpful. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the question.
Powerful question. You know, this reminds me of the first time I met Ken Schwaber. So I did my professional Scrum Master class in Boston, scrum.org. I met my hero, Ken Schwaber. That was awesome. He taught me Scrum. And he said, I effing hate user stories. And I was like, what? I thought user stories are like the gospel truth in Agile. So I asked Ken, maybe during a break, very timidly, Ken, why did you say that? And he explained. What he was saying is, I think the essence of what he was saying is that we don't want to force the people who we are trying to serve to understand our jargon, our language. The people you want to serve, we must serve them in their language. We should not, why should we force them to understand our geek speak? So Sandeep, what you're saying is exactly right. We have to put a Java virtual machine, and you have to have a different JVM. If you're talking to Apple architecture, you've got to convert the bytecode into Apple. If you're using Android or whatever, maybe that's a flawed analogy, but whatever is the hardware, the chipset. So storytelling is so important. And I would recommend, not to use the A word, the Agile word, or the S word, the Scrum word. Don't use that. Just talk to them in the language of business. Hey, remember last year we were trying to roll out this new model and we had $1 million of wasted inventory. Would you be interested in exploring how we can cut down the waste by 20%? Could we explore some ideas? So Ken Schwaber taught me in Scrum, in my PSM class, that Scrum should be used for 3 reasons, at least one of 3 reasons: increase value, decrease waste, manage risk. Most executives care about one or all of these 3 things. So let's not talk about Scrum or Agile. Let's talk about increasing revenue, decreasing costs, managing regulatory risk exposure. Would you be interested? Let's talk. So absolutely, Sandeep, use their language. Great question.
So Ravi, that I call as mic drop, right? So that's like a mic drop moment for me. So thank you so much. Any more questions we have for Ravi? So being with Ravi is like every moment, everything what he speaks is a lot of learning, right? So and the good thing about him is the art of storytelling. So he knows how to really convey the right message. So why I'm telling this again and again is to leverage the opportunity by asking a question.
Tell me, so guys, yeah, Sandeep, go ahead.
Any good books on storytelling which you would recommend?
Heart of Change is important. Give me one moment, sorry. Let me think.
Steve Denning has a great book. He talks about storytelling for the business. So I will also put that in the things to explore in Mural.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel, let me tell you something about myself. I am not as prolific a reader as Nagesh, and I'm not, Nagesh is my hero. I wish one day I can be like him. But I want to tell you how I have become who I am. First, I'm a software engineer. I did my I did my bachelor's in computer science from RV College of Engineering in Bangalore. And then I did a couple of jobs and I came to the US. But when I was a child, I wanted to be a storyteller. And I come from a middle class background. And my mom and dad, they told me, beta, class 10 में अच्छा board exam में अच्छे number लाओ, तो 11th में science में admission हो जाएगा, फिर 12th में अच्छे number लाओ, entrance exam में engineering मिल जाएगी, फिर campus job मिल जाएगा, and then you're set for life, right? So basically, those who don't know Hindi, basically it was like, there's a train. My parents put me on the train because for a middle class family, if you don't become, in those days, right? I'm talking about like, I'm an old fart, 1998, I went into college. So a middle class family, I come from very humble beginnings. My parents told me that's the only way to take care of yourself, right? So your storytelling will say, kuch nahi hoga, you'll become a star, you'll star. My dad had a dream of being a painter. So, he went that route. He got training to be a painter. And then finally, my grandfather told his painting teacher to tell him, beta, isse kuch nahi hoga, tum jao engineer bano, right? So my father had been down that path and he saw me going down that path. So he said, beta, ye sab mat karo, tum chupchap engineering karo, sab sahi ho jayega, right? Get into engineering, then everything will be. So I am a storyteller by heart, but what inspires me is I want to help people. And I want people to go back home with joy in their heart and with a sense of pride and a sense of accomplishment. So when they go back home, whoever is waiting, your partner, your wife, your husband, your kids, your dogs, you come in and you're full of energy. And you don't go home feeling, oh man, my job gave me benefits and the salary, but they suck the joy out of my soul, right? You're dead, you're a zombie, and you go home and you're like, just give me 1 hour to rediscover my humanity. Don't talk to me, right? So the people who are waiting for you at home, you walk in, they're like, daddy, mommy, I want to play. And you're like, no, man, don't even talk to me, right? What calls me in life is, I don't want that to happen. We all have bills to pay, but I don't want the pursuit of your paycheck to kill your soul. Why is this related to Sandeep's questions about storytelling? I am called so powerfully by that mission. I'm a self-taught person. So when I see pain, I keep thinking, what can I do to communicate to this person so that when they go home, they have joy in their heart? And I feel that empathy has allowed me, the empathy, the love, the caring has allowed me to try, fail. And finally, I figure out how to connect with this human being. What does this human being care for? And that is my ask of you, right? If you shift your being, then you'll figure out what it is that you need to know. And if you figure out what you need to know, it will change what you need to do. And if you change what you need to do, it will change what you need to get. My life coach taught me this. Usually when we are not getting what we want, we ask, what do I need to do different? So we are in the activity mode, like a hamster. We are pedaling. We didn't get it. What do I need to do? What do I need to know? What certification shall I get? But we rarely introspect in who do I need to be. And I feel that if you shift the being domain, you will get what you need to get in the getting domain, right? So that's what worked for me. I'm not saying that works for everyone. So I'm embarrassed about how little I have read. And I'm telling you, someone with my flaws, what has helped me in my life, right? Shifting the being. You care about the human being. You listen to the human being. The human being will tell you what story might resonate with him or her.
Thank you so much, Ravi. That's your humility. So I think we should let Ravi go with smile rather than he feeling that, oh boy, come on. I mean, now I have to rush this, right? So I don't really want that. So thank you so much. And we wish that the audience gave you enough engagement and you also felt your time was valued, Ravi. We definitely
Absolutely.
have lots of value.
Thank you so much. Keep calm. Come on.
Thank you, Ravi. See you soon.